The morning sun cast long shadows across Jack Harrison's front yard as he knelt beside the outer wall of his garage. His weathered hands worked methodically, installing what looked like an ordinary outdoor electrical outlet. To anyone passing by, it seemed like a simple home improvement project, but Jack knew better. This was no ordinary outlet. Jack had moved into the Whispering Pines community just 3 weeks ago. After 27 years in military engineering, and another 5 as a private consultant for projects he couldn't talk about, he had hoped for peace and quiet. The neighborhood had seemed perfect on paper. Well-maintained homes, good location, reasonable prices. The listing agent had mentioned something about an active homeowners association, but Jack hadn't paid much attention. He was used to following Chaucer. What the agent hadn't mentioned was Deborah Winters. Jack connected the final wire and secured the outlet's cover plate. He stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead, and admired his work. The outlet looked completely normal. White plastic face, 2 standard sockets, waterproof cover. Nobody would guess it connected directly to the experimental system buried 20 feet beneath his backyard, disguised as a septic tank. "Excuse me, hello there." Jack turned to see a woman marching up his driveway. She wore beige slacks and a blue polo shirt with Whispering Pines HOA embroidered on the chest. Her blonde hair was cut in a perfect bob, and she carried a clipboard, like a weapon. "Good morning," Jack said, forcing a smile. "Can I help you?" "I'm Deborah Winters, president of the Homeowners Association." She didn't offer her hand. Instead, she glanced at the outlet Jack had just installed. "I don't recall seeing an approved modification request for electrical work." Jack maintained his smile. "Just a standard outdoor outlet. The previous owner had one here that wasn't working. Nevertheless, all exterior modifications require prior board approval." Deborah made a note on her clipboard. "I'll need you to submit the proper paperwork by Friday. There's a $50 review fee." Before Jack could respond, Deborah's attention shifted to his front yard. "Your grass is nearly an inch over regulation height, and those bushes don't match the approved landscaping palette for this section." For the next 15 minutes, Deborah listed every possible violation she could find. Jack nodded politely, thinking about the real reason he had chosen this specific neighborhood. The geological surveys had shown this area had exactly the right soil composition for the waste conversion experiments. The aliens had been very specific about that. Of course, Jack couldn't tell Deborah that the septic tank he had installed last week contained technology from a civilization 17 light years away, or that the outlet she was so concerned about was connected to a power source that could run her entire house for a century. "I'll take care of everything," Jack promised when she finally paused for breath. Deborah seemed disappointed by his cooperation. "See that you do. We maintain very high standards here." With a final glance at his supposedly overgrown lawn, she turned and walked away. Jack watched her go, then tapped his wristwatch twice. A small holographic display appeared above his wrist, visible only from his angle. "System online," he reported quietly. "Local authority is exactly as you predicted, extremely regulation-focused." The display flickered with symbols that would look like nonsense to anyone else. Jack understood them perfectly. "Yes, I agree," he replied to the unheard message. "This makes it the perfect testing location." 3 days later, Jack was drinking his morning coffee when he noticed a silver electric car pull up near his driveway. Deborah Winters stepped out, looked around quickly, then opened her trunk and removed a charging cable. With swift, practiced movements, she plugged one end into her car and the other into Jack's outdoor outlet. Jack watched through the window, amused rather than angry. The system had detected the power draw immediately, but it wasn't a problem. In fact, it was part of why he was here, to see how the alien technology adapted to unexpected human interference. This pattern continued for 2 weeks. Every morning, around 8, Deborah would park near Jack's house, plug in her car, and spend about an hour walking the neighborhood with her clipboard, documenting violations. When she returned, she'd unplug and drive away. Jack documented everything but said nothing. The aliens were fascinated by this behavior. She takes without asking, yet enforces strict rules on others. Jack explained during his nightly report. "This is what we call hypocrisy. It's very common in human power structures. The symbols on his display pulsed rapidly. No, I don't recommend terminating the experiment. This is valuable data on how humans interact with systems they don't understand. More symbols appeared. Don't worry about the power drain, it's minimal compared to what the system generates. The real test will come when the conversion process begins next month. One morning, as Jack was checking readings from the underground system, he heard a sharp knock at his door. He opened it to find Deborah standing there, clipboard in hand, and face set in a stern expression. "Mr. Harrison, the board has received complaints about unauthorized equipment in your yard." Jack looked past her. "What equipment?" "A resident reported seeing unusual activity near your supposed septic tank access point." She made septic tank sound like a lie. "Our bylaws clearly state that all waste management systems must conform to county regulations." Jack maintained a neutral expression. "My septic system is fully compliant." "Then you won't mind if our approved contractor inspects it next week." She handed him a notice. "Tuesday at 9 a.m. Please ensure access is available." After she left, Jack immediately sent an urgent message through his secured channel. This was an unexpected development. The system wasn't ready for human inspection, especially not from someone looking for violations. That evening, as Jack was receiving instructions on how to handle the inspection, he noticed Deborah's car parked near his driveway again. This was unusual. She never came in the evening. Through his window, he watched as she plugged her car into his outlet, then sat inside with the interior light on, apparently working on something. After about 20 minutes, she got out and knocked on his door. "Mr. Harrison," she said when he answered, "I wanted to inform you that I've scheduled additional inspections of your property. We've received reports of unusual noises and lights at night." Jack kept his face blank. "I haven't noticed anything unusual." "Perhaps not, but as HOA president, it's my duty to investigate all potential violations." She smiled thinly. "By the way, your outlet has been very convenient for my evening work. Much appreciated." She walked away before Jack could respond, leaving him standing in the doorway. He watched as she unplugged her car and drove off, then checked his monitoring system. The outlet had registered something new this time, a data probe. She had tried to hack his system through the electrical connection. Well, Jack murmured to himself as he sent another urgent update to his extraterrestrial partners. This just got interesting. Jack spent the next 3 days preparing for the septic system inspection. The aliens had sent him detailed instructions on how to create a holographic overlay that would make their technology appear like a standard human waste management system to any inspector. The device Jack built looked like a regular tablet but could project false readings to any equipment the contractor might bring. On Monday afternoon, Jack noticed Deborah's car parked by his outlet again. This time, she had brought company. 3 other HOA board members sat in folding chairs on the sidewalk near his property line. They all held clipboards and seemed to be having some kind of meeting. Jack watched from his window as Deborah gestured toward his house repeatedly. The others nodded and wrote things down. Occasionally, they would all look at his yard with disapproving expressions. "They're trying to build a case against me," Jack muttered to himself, sending real-time updates through his secure communication device. The response came quickly. "Continue observation. Data on group dynamics valuable." Jack sighed. The aliens were always more interested in human behavior than in the actual technology they had sent to Earth. Their waste conversion system was revolutionary, capable of breaking down any organic material into clean energy and useful compounds, but they seemed to care more about how humans might misuse or adapt to it. That evening, after Deborah and her committee left, Jack went outside to check the outlet. He found a note taped above it. "Neighborhood Watch Meeting Location, Wednesday, 7 p.m. She hadn't even asked him if she could use his property for their meeting. The next morning brought the scheduled inspection. The contractor, a bored-looking man named Steve, arrived exactly at 9 a.m. Deborah was with him, clipboard ready. "This won't take long," Steve said to Jack. "Just need to check that everything's up to code." Jack led them to the backyard where the fake septic access point was located. As Steve opened it and lowered his equipment, Jack discreetly activated his tablet. The holographic overlay immediately began functioning, projecting false but perfectly normal readings to Steve's sensors. "System looks standard," Steve said after a few minutes. "Good flow rate, proper containment. When was this installed?" "The previous owner put it in about 5 years ago," Jack lied smoothly. "I had it serviced when I moved in." Deborah frowned. She had clearly been hoping for a violation. "What about the unusual activity reported by neighbors? Lights and sounds?" Steve shrugged. "Nothing unusual showing up on my readings. Maybe it was raccoons." After they left, Jack received another message. "Interference increasing, system adapting, proceed with Phase 2. Phase 2 meant beginning the actual waste conversion process. Until now, the system had been in standby mode, merely collecting and analyzing data. Starting the conversion would generate significantly more energy that would need to be dispersed somehow. Jack hadn't planned to start Phase 2 for another month, but the aliens insisted the timeline had to accelerate. That night, he activated the sequence. 3 days passed without incident. Jack monitored the system carefully as it began processing waste from the entire neighborhood through underground connections that had been secretly installed before any of the houses were even built. No one in Whispering Pines knew that their waste wasn't going to the municipal treatment plant, but was instead being converted into energy right beneath their feet. On Saturday morning, Jack found another note on his door. This one was an official HOA violation notice for excessive electrical usage causing community concern. According to the notice, several neighbors had complained about flickering lights when using appliances, and the HOA had determined that Jack's property was somehow responsible. The fine was $200 with an additional $50 per day until the issue was resolved. Jack was still staring at the notice when Deborah's car pulled up. She got out smiling smugly and walked over to his outlet with her charging cable. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison," she called out. "I see you received our notice. The board met yesterday and determined your property is causing electrical issues in the neighborhood." Jack folded the paper slowly. "That's impossible. My electrical usage is well within normal ranges." "Our experts disagree." She plugged her car in. "We've also scheduled another inspection, this time of your entire electrical system, Wednesday at 10 a.m. As she walked away to begin her neighborhood patrol, Jack noticed something odd. His monitoring system showed the outlet was now sending data to Deborah's car, data that should have been blocked by multiple security layers. He rushed inside and checked the main control panel. The system had indeed breached protocol. It had identified Deborah's repeated connections as an authorized diagnostic device, and was now sending her status updates meant only for Jack's eyes. "System compromised," he reported urgently. "Human has unintentional access to data feeds." The response was immediate. "Interesting development. Continue observation." Jack couldn't believe it. This is serious. She could discover everything. Human. Reaction to discovery. Valuable data. Proceed. Jack spent the next 2 days trying to figure out how to cut off the data feed without alerting Deborah that anything unusual was happening. The problem was that the system had now categorized her car as part of its network. Removing it abruptly might trigger fail-safe protocols that could be even worse. On Tuesday evening, Jack was still working on a solution when he heard a commotion outside. He looked out his window to see Deborah standing by her car, staring at the dashboard with a confused expression. Several other neighbors had gathered around her. Jack grabbed his binoculars. Through them, he could see that her car's display was showing the alien system's status icons, glowing symbols that made no sense to human eyes. "This is what I was telling you about," Deborah was saying to the gathered neighbors. "Something strange is happening in this neighborhood, and it's coming from Harrison's house." One of the neighbors peered at the display. "What language is that? It doesn't look like any code I've seen." "I don't know," Deborah admitted, "but it started appearing after I charged my car at his outlet." She unplugged the cable, and the symbols disappeared. She plugged it back in, and they reappeared. "See?" she said triumphantly. "He's doing something illegal with our electrical system." Jack knew he had to act fast. The situation was spiraling out of control. He sent an emergency signal to his contacts. Cover potentially blown. Request immediate instructions. The response came back almost instantly. Initiate contingency protocol Delta, prepare for direct intervention. Jack's heart sank. Protocol Delta meant the aliens would take a more active role, something they had wanted to avoid for as long as possible. Human society wasn't ready for open contact yet. Outside, Deborah was now leading the group toward Jack's front door, her face set with determination. The alien system chose that moment to enter its next phase. All across the neighborhood, lights flickered, and beneath Deborah's feet the ground began to glow with a faint blue light. The blue glow spread quickly through the soil, creating a network of light that resembled glowing veins beneath the grass. The neighbors backed away from Deborah, who stood frozen in place, staring at the ground around her feet. "What is happening?" she demanded, her voice higher than normal. She turned to glare at Jack, who had come out onto his front porch. "What did you do?" Jack raised his hands in a calming gesture. "Everyone, please stay calm. There's a simple explanation for this." "Then explain it." Deborah pointed at the glowing lines that now crisscrossed her perfect lawn. "Normal septic systems don't do this." Jack was frantically trying to think of a believable lie when his communication device buzzed. The message read, "Demonstration mode activated. Human integration protocol engaged." Before Jack could respond, a soft humming sound filled the air. The blue light grew brighter, and small bubble-like formations began rising from the soil, translucent, spheres that floated upward before gently popping with tiny flashes of light. The gathered neighbors gasped. Some backed away further, while others pulled out phones to record the phenomenon. "It's some kind of gas leak," one man suggested. "We should call the fire department." "That's not gas," another replied. "Gas doesn't glow blue and float in bubbles." Deborah marched up to Jack's porch, her face red with anger. "You have exactly 10 seconds to explain what is happening before I call the authorities." Jack looked past her at the increasingly dramatic light show happening across the neighborhood lawns. The alien system had never done this in any of the simulations. It was revealing itself far ahead of schedule. "It's a new waste management system," Jack said, deciding that a partial truth was his only option. "It's being tested in this neighborhood because of the specific soil composition. Without HOA approval." Deborah's voice rose even higher. "Without county permits?" A large bubble formed directly beneath her feet and lifted her several inches off the ground before popping. She screamed and jumped back. "The system is harmless," Jack assured everyone. "It's actually beneficial. The blue substance is a byproduct of the waste conversion process. It's an extremely potent fertilizer." As if on cue, the grass where the blue light was strongest began visibly growing, becoming lusher and greener by the second. Flowers that hadn't yet bloomed suddenly burst into color. "What kind of fertilizer glows and makes bubbles?" Deborah demanded. Jack's communication device buzzed again. This time the message read, "Proceed with limited disclosure, subject Deborah. Winters selected for first contact." Jack took a deep breath. "Deborah, would you please check your car's dashboard again?" She looked suspicious but walked back to her vehicle, which was still connected to Jack's outlet. The gathered neighbors followed her, curious. The car's display had changed. Instead of strange symbols, it now showed English text. "Greetings, Deborah Winters. Please accept our apologies for the unscheduled demonstration. Your consistent interaction with our power transfer node has made you the logical choice for initial contact." Deborah read the message aloud, her voice shaking. Then she turned to Jack with wide eyes. "What is this? Some kind of prank?" "It's not a prank," Jack said quietly. "That outlet you've been using isn't connected to my house's electrical system. It's connected to something else entirely." The car's display changed again. "We are visitors from another world. We have been observing Earth for many years. Jack Harrison is our designated liaison." A sudden silence fell over the group. Everyone stared at Jack. "You're working with aliens?" Deborah finally asked, her clipboard falling from her hand. "Yes," Jack admitted. They're interested in helping humanity develop more sustainable technologies. The waste conversion system beneath this neighborhood is just the beginning. The car's display kept updating. Your waste management methods are inefficient. We offer an alternative that converts biological waste into energy and nutrient-rich soil amendments. The process you are witnessing is phase 2 of implementation. Deborah looked from her car to the glowing yard and back to Jack. This is impossible. Aliens wouldn't care about our sewage. Actually, they find it fascinating, Jack explained. Different species develop different technologies based on their needs. These visitors excel at recycling and resource management. They've solved problems we haven't even recognized yet. Another neighbor raised his hand like he was in school. So they're space plumbers? Despite the tension, Jack couldn't help but smile. In a way, yes, very, very advanced space plumbers. The ground trembled slightly and the blue glow intensified. All across the neighborhood, plants were now growing at visible speeds. Flower beds that had been carefully maintained at regulation height were becoming wild and overgrown within minutes. Deborah seemed to snap out of her shock. This is still a violation of HOA bylaws. Alien technology or not, there are procedures that must be followed. Jack resisted the urge to laugh at her persistence. Deborah, I think we're a bit beyond HOA regulations now. The rules exist for a reason, she insisted, though her voice lacked its usual conviction. There are standards to maintain. Perhaps, came a new voice. Your standards need updating. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. A tall figure stood near Jack's garage, humanoid in shape but clearly not human. Its skin had a faint blue glow similar to the substance in the ground, and its eyes were large and completely black. Several neighbors screamed. One fainted. Deborah stood perfectly still, her mouth open but no sound coming out. I apologize for the dramatic entrance, the figure said, its voice oddly musical. But your continued use of our power transfer node accelerated our timeline. We were not planning to reveal ourselves for another 5 years. Jack approached the alien figure. This is Zarin, one of my primary contacts. He, or rather, they, have been monitoring our neighborhood remotely. Zarin nodded. Your persistent connection to our system, Deborah Winters, caused a feedback loop that activated our demonstration protocol prematurely. However, this presents an opportunity. Deborah finally found her voice. An opportunity for what? For cooperation, Zarin replied. Your organizational skills and attention to detail are impressive, even if sometimes misdirected. Such qualities are valuable for what comes next. What comes next? She asked weakly. Jack stepped forward. The waste conversion system is just phase 1. The real project is much bigger. Zarin gestured, and a holographic image appeared in the air above them, a massive structure in orbit around Earth. A space station? Someone asked. A colony ship, Jack corrected. Humanity's first interstellar vessel. And this neighborhood is helping to develop the life support systems that will make it possible. Deborah stared at the hologram, then at the alien, then at Jack. Her face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, anger, and finally, something that looked almost like wonder. So when I was using your outlet, she began. You were unknowingly helping test the power regulation systems for the colony ship, Jack finished for her. The system adapted to your usage patterns, which is why it started sending you data. Zarin moved closer to Deborah, who stiffened but didn't back away. Your world stands at a crossroads, Deborah Winters. Will you help guide your community through this transition? Or will you resist change because it doesn't fit your existing rules? Deborah looked down at her clipboard, then back at the glowing yards and the incredible being standing before her. Slowly, deliberately, she tore the violation notice in half. I think, she said carefully, we may need to revise the HOA bylaws. Word spread quickly throughout Whispering Pines. By nightfall, the neighborhood was swarming with curious residents, all coming to see the glowing blue soil and the alien visitor. Jack had moved everyone to his backyard, hoping to contain the situation somewhat, but people kept arriving with lawn chairs and coolers like they were attending a block party. Zarin seemed unbothered by the attention, The alien sat cross-legged on Jack's patio, patiently answering questions from the growing crowd. Deborah had positioned herself next to Zarin, acting as if she'd been part of the alien contact team all along. "Please form an orderly line," she instructed the neighbors. "Each person gets 2 questions. Keep them brief and relevant." Jack watched with amazement as people actually obeyed her. Even with an alien visitor present, Deborah's authority remained intact. "Will our house values go up or down because of this?" asked a man in a golf shirt. Zarin tilted their head. "Your concept of property value is fascinating. This technology will make your homes the most advanced on your planet. Is that not valuable? But will it affect resale value?" the man pressed. Jack stepped in. "Once the story goes public, these will be the most famous homes in the world. I think you'll do fine financially." This seemed to satisfy most of the homeowners, who nodded and murmured among themselves. A woman raised her hand. "Is the blue stuff safe for children and pets?" "The bionutrient matrix is completely harmless," Zarin assured her. "In fact, it enhances health in most Earth organisms. Your plants are already demonstrating this effect." People looked around, at their yards where previously well-maintained gardens had transformed into lush, vibrant jungles of growth. Flowers that should have been dormant were blooming in spectacular colors. Vegetable gardens had produced full-sized produce overnight. "My tomato plants have tomatoes the size of basketballs," someone called out, "and they taste amazing." As the questions continued, government vehicles began appearing at the neighborhood entrance. Men in dark suits and military uniforms tried to establish a perimeter, but they seemed hesitant to approach Jack's yard directly. Jack checked his communication device. It displayed a simple message. "Phase 3 initiated. Government contact established." "Zarin," Jack said quietly. "We have company." The alien nodded. "Yes, your governmental authorities have been automatically notified. This is part of the protocol." Deborah looked worried. "Are they going to cause trouble? Try to take over?" "They will attempt to assert control," Zarin agreed. "This is expected behavior for human power structures when faced with unknown variables." Deborah straightened her back and squared her shoulders. "Well, they can't just barge in here without proper procedures. This is private property governed by the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association." Jack couldn't believe what he was hearing. Deborah was positioning herself to defend against government intervention using HOA regulations. "Perhaps," Jack suggested gently, "we should cooperate with them. They're just doing their jobs." "Their jobs don't supersede our community standards," Deborah insisted. She looked at Zarin. "What are your recommendations for handling this situation?" The alien seemed pleased by the question. "Your leadership instincts are well developed, Deborah Winters. I suggest a diplomatic approach. Jack Harrison will serve as our official representative, but you may act as community liaison." This arrangement appeared to satisfy Deborah. She nodded importantly and began organizing the neighbors into what she called a welcome committee for the government officials. Jack approached one of the military officers who had ventured closer to his property line. "Colonel, I can explain what's happening here." The officer looked past Jack at Zarin. "Is that what I think it is?" "Yes," Jack confirmed. "A visitor from another world. They come in peace and are offering technology to help us. We have protocols for this kind of situation," the colonel said stiffly. "So do they," Jack replied. "And their protocols include keeping this community intact as a test site. These homes are now part of an important project." Before the colonel could respond, Deborah marched up with her clipboard. "Excuse me, are you the person in charge? I'll need to see your authorization for entering our neighborhood. We have specific guidelines about official visits." The colonel blinked in surprise. "Ma'am, this is a matter of national security." "And this is a matter of proper procedure," Deborah countered. "Our community has just established first contact protocols with an advanced alien civilization. We're handling the situation appropriately." Jack had to admire her nerve. 24 hours ago, Deborah had been citing him for lawn height violations. Now she was facing down the military, as if she'd been preparing for this moment her whole life. More government vehicles arrived, including several with scientific equipment. A woman in a lab coat approached Jack. "Dr. Samantha Lee, National Science Foundation. We'd like to examine the biological agent that's affecting the plant life." "Of course," Jack agreed. "But you should know it's perfectly safe. In fact, it's beneficial." Dr. Lee nodded. "That's what we need to verify. The growth rate is unprecedented." As scientists began taking samples of the blue soil, high-ranking officials huddled with Jack and Zarin. Deborah insisted on joining these meetings, bringing her clipboard and taking detailed notes. "The technology will remain here," Zarin explained to a general who had flown in by helicopter. "This community is the perfect testing ground due to its soil composition and the particular attention to detail shown by its residents." The general frowned. "We can't just leave advanced alien tech in a suburban neighborhood." "You can, and you will," Zarin said firmly but politely. "This is non-negotiable. Our species doesn't share technology that can be weaponized or centralized. It must remain distributed among ordinary people." "But the security implications," the general began, "are precisely why we chose this method," Zarin finished. "Your military has proven repeatedly that it cannot be trusted with advanced technology. Homeowners, however, have shown great care with their properties." Deborah beamed with pride at this statement. "Our community has won the Regional Beautification Award 3 years running." The general looked at her as if she'd lost her mind. But Jack understood Zarin's strategy. The aliens had studied human behavior enough to know that ordinary people caring for their homes were more reliable stewards than power-hungry institutions. As night fell, temporary floodlights were set up around the neighborhood. The blue glow from the soil created an otherworldly atmosphere. News helicopters circled overhead and reporters gathered at the perimeter, desperate for information. Jack found Deborah sitting alone on a bench, watching the activity around them. "How are you holding up?" he asked. She looked at him with tired but excited eyes. "Do you know how long I've worked to make this neighborhood perfect? 10 years. Every rule, every standard, every inspection. It was all to create something special. You succeeded," Jack offered. Deborah smiled slightly. "I thought perfection meant uniformity, control, but this," she gestured at the transformed landscape. "This is actually perfect. Different, unexpected, but perfect." Jack sat beside her. "The aliens chose this neighborhood partly because of you, you know." "Me?" Deborah looked surprised. "They needed someone detail-oriented who cared deeply about standards, someone who would notice if things weren't right." Jack pointed to her car, still plugged into his outlet. "Your persistence in using that connection helped them gather vital data about human behavior." Deborah looked at her car thoughtfully. "So my being a, what did you call me behind my back? A Karen? Actually helped?" Jack had the grace to look embarrassed. "Let's just say your attention to detail served a greater purpose than anyone realized." She nodded slowly. "When the Septic system goes online in the colony ship, I want it named after me." Jack laughed. "I'll see what I can do." 6 months passed, and Whispering Pines had transformed completely. The once uniform suburban neighborhood now served as Earth's first alien technology testing ground. The neat lawns had become thriving gardens of both earth plants and some new varieties introduced by Zarin's people. The cookie-cutter homes remained, but each now sported sleek silver panels that connected to the underground waste conversion system. Jack's role had expanded from secret alien contact to official liaison between the visitors and Earth governments. He spent most days in meetings with scientists, diplomats, and military officials, who all wanted access to the alien technology. Despite constant pressure, Jack maintained that the testing would remain in Whispering Pines just as Zarin had insisted. But the most surprising transformation was Deborah Winters. The former HOA president had become the community coordinator for the Alien Technology Integration Project. She had traded her clipboard for a tablet loaded with alien data, and her beige slacks for practical jumpsuits with the project logo. A blue septic tank with stars around it. On a warm spring morning, Jack arrived at the community center, which had been converted into project headquarters. Deborah was already there, directing a team of scientists with the same efficiency she once directed landscapers. The nutrient flow in Section 5 needs adjustment, she was saying. And someone left testing equipment on the Peters lawn overnight. We have standards, people. Jack smiled. Some things never changed. Morning, Deborah, he greeted her. How's the Winters waste system doing today? She brightened at the mention of the system named after her. Running at 112% efficiency, the aliens are impressed with our output levels. The Winters system, as it was now officially known, had proven even more effective than the aliens had predicted. Its capacity to convert waste into clean energy and rich fertilizer had solved two major problems for the future colony ship. Deborah took immense pride in this achievement. The president is visiting today, Jack reminded her. Yes, and we're behind schedule, Deborah replied, checking her tablet. The welcoming committee needs to assemble in 1 hour. The demonstration units must be prepped, and we still haven't decided who gets to sit at the main table during lunch. Jack put a hand on her shoulder. You've got this. You ran this neighborhood. With an iron fist for years, the President of the United States should be easy by comparison. Deborah actually laughed, something she rarely did before the aliens arrived. True, at least he won't leave his trash cans out past collection day. As they walked through the community, residents waved and called out greetings. The same people who once feared Deborah's inspection rounds now sought her advice and approval. Her attention to detail and strict standards had found their perfect application in managing humanity's first steps toward becoming a spacefaring civilization. They passed Deborah's house, where her car sat in the driveway, no longer needing to steal power from Jack's outlet. It had been modified by the aliens as a thank you gift and now ran entirely on energy from the waste conversion system. It was the first of its kind on Earth. Remember when you used to park by my house every day? Jack asked. Deborah had the grace to look embarrassed. Not my finest hour, though in my defense I had no idea I was connecting to alien technology. The aliens say your persistent unauthorized usage was actually helpful. It showed them how humans might try to exploit their systems. And now we have safety protocols because of it, Deborah said proudly. Sometimes breaking the rules leads to better rules. They arrived at the central testing facility, formerly the neighborhood park, where Zarin was working with a team of human engineers. The alien looked up as they approached. Jack Harrison, Deborah Winters. The final phase begins today. Deborah checked her tablet. We're still calibrating the main converters. Can we delay by 2 hours? Zarin made a sound like gentle wind chimes, their version of laughter. Your concern for perfection is why you were chosen, Deborah Winters. But the system is ready now. The alien gestured toward a large structure in the center of the facility. It resembled a silver tree with branches extending in all directions. Each branch connected to a different house in the community through underground pipes. The central node is complete, Zarin explained. Once activated, it will link all homes in this community into a single system. The waste from each household will power not only that home but will contribute to the greater grid. And this is the prototype for the colony ship? Jack asked. Yes. What works here will work among the stars. Zarin turned to Deborah. Your organizational protocols have been incorporated into the system design. The Winters method, we call it. Deborah's eyes widened. My method? You mean my HOA rules? Your attention to detail, your systems for maintenance, your insistence on accountability. These are valuable frameworks for any community, especially one traveling through space. Zarin placed a long-fingered hand on her shoulder. Rules exist, for reasons, Deborah Winters. Your understanding of this truth is why you now lead. Tears formed in Deborah's eyes, but she quickly blinked them away and straightened her posture. Well, of course, structure is essential for progress. The presidential motorcade arrived right on schedule. Secret Service agents swarmed the area, followed by officials and reporters. The president emerged from his limousine and approached Jack, Deborah, and Zarin with an extended hand. Mr. Harrison, Ms. Winters, and Zarin, is it? Thank you for hosting me today. Deborah stepped forward. Welcome to Whispering Pines, Mr. President. We have a strict schedule to maintain, so please follow me. Jack suppressed a laugh as the President of the United States was promptly led away by the former HOA president, who was already explaining the community guidelines he would need to follow during his visit. That evening, after the president had left and the community had settled back into its routine, Jack found Deborah sitting on a bench in what remained of the park. Above them, the night sky seemed particularly bright with stars. "Penny for your thoughts?" Jack asked, sitting beside her. Deborah looked up at the stars. "I was just thinking about how much has changed. 6 months ago, I was writing you up for having grass that was too long. Now we're preparing to send humans to other solar systems. Using technology that started with an outlet you kept using without permission," Jack added with a smile. "Life is strange," Deborah agreed. "Do you think we'll actually go? On the colony ship, I mean. Would you want to?" She considered this. "A year ago, I would have said no. My life was here, making sure everyone followed the rules, keeping everything perfect." She paused. "But now I understand that perfection isn't about control. It's about adaptation, growth." Jack nodded. "The aliens chose well when they chose you." "They chose us both," Deborah corrected him. "Your willingness to bend rules, and my insistence on creating them, turns out both approaches were needed." From the central facility, a blue light suddenly shot upward into the night sky, a beam of energy created from the community's converted waste. It was visible for miles, a signal to the stars that humanity was ready for the next step. Deborah watched the beam with satisfaction. "We'll need to draft guidelines for proper waste disposal in space, you know. Can't have people just flushing things willy-nilly among the stars." Jack laughed. "Some things really never change." "But some things do," Deborah said softly, looking at the homes around them, once governed by her strict HOA rules, now part of humanity's greatest advancement. "And sometimes, change is perfect too." Above them, the blue beam connected Earth to the stars, built on the unlikely foundation of an HOA president who couldn't resist using someone else's outdoor outlet.